What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes are back. We get to talk to Andre Petroski today, who's got a big fight coming up against Gerald Meerschaert at UFC 292 on August 19th. My man here is 9-1, 4-0 in the UFC, kicking butt. First fight in 2023. How are you, Andre?
Doing well. Doing well.
You fought twice in 2021, twice in 2022. And this is your first time in 2023, but we know you had another fight booked that was canceled due to injury. Can you update us on your health, and can you shed light on what the injury was? It doesn't look like it was serious because you're fighting pretty soon here.
Yeah, I had a tear in my shoulder, my rotator cuff.
Oh, shit.
It was less than 50% width, so it didn't require surgery. The UFC helped me out a lot. They got me set up with stem cells and PRP and all that recovery stuff. And I took like 2 months off from training, and yeah, it got better. It got better. I did a lot of rehab for it, but knock on wood, luckily so far it hasn't been re-irritated in this camp.
That's simply amazing because I saw your Instagram where you're climbing up the ropes. Is that before the injury or after the injury?
That was like, it was like a year ago. Yeah, that was much before.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So it is May. Okay. You know what threw me off? I'm thinking May of 2023. It was May of 2022. Yeah. So then that was a long time ago. I'm like, wow, this guy either recovers fast or that did it, because that's simply amazing how you did that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I think that was a year before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was just May of 2022. I wasn't looking in May. Should have looked at the fact that we're in May of 2023. Well, what would you say the shoulder's at now? I mean, back to 100%. You've done everything you wanted to in terms of, hard sparring.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still like erroring on the side of caution. Like, I'm definitely training smarter now. But I have been going hard. Like, we've been going really hard. At least when we are doing our sparring and our little glove sparring. So, I mean, knock on wood, it's been really good. I am super grateful that it hasn't been irritating me, because that last camp that I was doing for the Petrosian fight that I pulled out of was just brutal. Like, I would go to practice, and after the morning practice, like, it would just get so inflamed and it would be throbbing so bad I just couldn't train.
Okay, so now with the stem cell and being smart, you're getting through it. You don't have pain, is what you're saying?
Correct.
That's good to hear. That could be a serious injury, so I'm glad you're managing it and not rushing it. And you still got one whole more month to go. But let's face it, I mean, you use your power, your strength, your wrestling, your grappling. I imagine the shoulders, you need it to be tip top. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that was a fight where I was definitely going to be looking to grapple him, and I just wasn't able to do like the grappling training for that fight.
Mm-hmm. So now you got Gerald Meerschaert, and he likes to grapple too. I think I was looking at his last 6 wins. What is it? Guillotine or rear naked choke? He seems to have his go-tos or whatever. You see something like that? Go ahead.
He's got the most submissions in the history of the division. So that's something that excites me for sure. That was originally why I had called him out 2 fights ago. So I finally got it, and I'm really just happy that I was able to get it after. I felt really bad that I had pulled out of this fight, and I thought I was in a bad spot. But to be able for the UFC to give me a fight that I asked for, coming off pulling out of a fight, I feel really lucky, and I'm very excited about the opportunity.
Well, you are a tough alum, and you are 4-0 in the UFC, and 9-1 is a great start to a career. So I think they see a lot of promise here. When you see Meerschaert, and I know you want to test your skills, what's the fine balance between ego and wanting to maybe best him in grappling because he's a grappling standout like yourself, or maybe just being smart and saying, you know what, let's see what you got in the stand up. We'll forego the grappling.
I mean, we're gonna do it all, man. Like, even in my last fight, I spent significantly more time in the stand up. So I think that I'm gonna force him to shoot on me, which is gonna be in my favor for sure.
Yeah, could very well happen. I love the way your stand up has definitely developed. And this guy's a veteran. He definitely can do it all as well. Um, Another thing I noticed is this is your third pay per view. So, what do you find to be maybe the cause of that? Has the UFC told you, hey man, the fans just find you appealing? We're going to try and get you on these big cards, because even the one that was canceled was going to be a pay per view, but that's pretty. A lot of fighters don't get on pay per views for a while.
Yeah, and obviously that's the goal. We want as many eyes on my fights as possible. So that's certainly intended that way.
Andre, I want to go back to
Let's just leave it at that.
What's that?
what was that?
I have good management.
Nice.
Okay.
I want to go back to the grappling a little bit because I've been noticing more and more that fighters in between fights are taking some of these grappling matches, and it seems to kind of not just physically but mentally keep them sharp. Can you maybe describe a little bit your intensity, your feelings before a grappling match versus an MMA fight, and does that kind of work for you in that way?
Yeah, I mean the it's just totally different as far as like it's like more relaxed. It's like a more relaxed, more calm atmosphere or attitude towards it, but it's still a good way to make money. And it's still like gets a little bit of that itch out, like I only got to fight twice last year. So to be able to do a grappling match in between those fights keeps like that ring rust per se, keeps that away. I'm still like in the mindset of competition, which for me is huge. Like if I compete, the more often I compete, the more comfortable I get into a rhythm. And that's when I really start racking up some wins.
Racking up wins and finishes. Can you maybe share with us what it is about you that you feel that stands out, that you're able to continuously get these finishes the way you do? We talk to a lot of fighters. A lot of them sometimes get the win and they're almost a little disappointed that they didn't get the finish. You can do this a lot. Like your percentage is out of this world.
I think I'm just in the cage, like a very greedy fighter, a greedy like athlete. Like no matter how tired I am, um, like I still like want to finish, even if I know like I can coast to like a safe victory. Like it's not enough for me. Like it's never enough. Like I want to finish. I know, and I've had that mindset towards training and towards competing for so long. I just know that's what I like looking at my topology and I see finish. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to ask you this. Growing up where George and I grew up, we grew up in Orange County, California. We're in Vegas now, but there's a long history in sports of Angels, Dodgers, Lakers, Kings. There's so many different teams, and when you're out there on the court and you're playing, you're emulating some of these guys that you're used to watching. You grew up in a town that just is known for a lot of gritty, hard fighters. Can you maybe share? Is there any influences maybe from boxing and combat, or even mixed martial arts, which now has a longer history? Are there any of these people that kind of influenced you in your game?
Yeah, for sure. Like when I was first coming up, there was like three big names from our area: Timmy Williams, Paul Felder, and Eddie Alvarez, and they were like the only guys that I really knew from our area that made it to the UFC, made it to the pinnacle of the sport. And but they most of and Eddie and Paul, they both left. Paul went to Milwaukee to Rufus Sport, and Eddie went down to Florida. So I think that like for me, I have a lot of pride in the fact that I was part of this first group of fighters that decided to stay and build here at home. Like, and I think what you're seeing is for the first time, people from other countries, other states are coming to Philadelphia to pursue a career in MMA, where 10 years ago, that was unheard of. Everyone left Philadelphia if they wanted to be a professional martial artist.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought, isn't Joe Pfeiffer one of your buddies, teammates?
He is my teammate, yes.
Yeah. Was he able to share some good knowledge in training camp, and has he maybe replicated a little bit of Gerald Meerschaert in camp?
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Joe have been teammates since right now, even before we were on the team that we were with now, we were with Balance. So me and Joe have been teammates since his first amateur fight. So he came to MMA with that boxing background. His dad was the boxing coach for Eddie, and he had like a boxing background, and I had the wrestling background. So we've always like collaborated a little bit. He's helped me with my boxing, and I've tried to help him with his wrestling. But yeah, as far as the Meerschaert fight, he was actually the one that said to me, like, yo, I think Meerschaert would be a good fight for you. And I was like, and that's when I started watching him, and I was like, wow, this dude has the most submission wins. So after the Maximov fight, that's when I called him out. And then he ended up getting that fight that I wanted. But nonetheless, like, it's still a fight that I want, you know?
This one's kind of just a silly question, but I've seen you chopping these trees. You're standing on them, you're chopping away, and man, nobody's a natural. It's gotta like take time for you to look that good. For me, I don't think I could ever get past the point of, am I about to chop my fucking foot off? When did you was that pretty natural for you, or do you ever fall off of that tree?
No, I can't say that I ever did. No. But I, you know what? Now that you remind me, I should be more careful. Glad we did this.
You know what was ridiculous in the movie Titanic, when Rose has to use that axe to get the handcuffs off him? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And her practice swings were terrible. There, you know, the ship was going down. I can't believe she closed her eyes and nailed it. I don't know. You know, I never thought I'd have to use that reference, but yeah, speaking of outdoor activities, I just had to. I don't know. I've been holding on to that one for 2 years.
I, to be completely transparent, Titanic's one of my favorite movies, just to be honest.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna laugh your ass off. Like, what's this dude
I like
talking
a
about?
good cruise ship romance.
What'd you think of that whole thing with the Titan submersible? Were you following that? Were you kind of into the whole thing there?
A little bit, yeah. What's new on it? Did they found parts of it, but they didn't find the people, right?
Let's just say they're down there with the Titanic as well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So they went in one of those submersibles, and it looks like what happened was it just imploded. But they did this search for like 4 days before they realized, okay, this thing actually imploded like an hour and a half into the actual dive. And we were looking for it, thinking that because there was sounds in the ocean, they never found it. But the whole thing was based on them going down to see the Titanic. Would you ever get in one of those after hearing that news?
I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm really comfortable on top of water, but I think I would get pretty claustrophobic, like under the water.
I think so too.
Yeah, I don't know how I would feel about that.
It's 2.5 miles, but then the other day I was thinking, wait a minute, I walk 2.5 miles when I'm walking the dog in the morning. And so when I put it like that, I thought, okay, you're in that thing. You are underneath, you're deep in the ocean, where if something goes wrong, obviously you're toast as evidence. But at the same time, for some reason, I thought it was just way, way deeper. I mean, 2 miles, 2.5 miles is pretty far. But as far as the claustrophobic thing, I don't know, maybe I could handle it. But there's been a lot of successful dips. The director of the Titanic, James Cameron, he's actually been down there 33 times successfully and always came back up. So it's not like It's
I
not
mean,
like
I'm down for diving, but I don't want to be like contained in a submarine. No, I'm good on that.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Hey, you brought up topology earlier, and I looked it up. On topology, you're ranked, and this is all subjective, obviously. You're ranked
Yeah,
number 34.
yeah.
Gerald is ranked number 24. But it's interesting because I think it's about right. And do you feel it's about right? And if you beat him, now you're creeping on the top 20. Is that kind of where you saw yourself after your fifth fight in the UFC, that you'd be around here, or did you expect to be higher?
Um, I thought I would be higher, especially after the Maximov win. It just seems like I haven't climbed with any of my wins, which I understand for the first two. Neither of those guys were ranked high at all, but for the Maximov fight, he was undefeated, and he had multiple wins in the division against guys that were, in that 20 to 40 range. And then Thurman had same. It was the same deal. He had wins too. So, but then there's other guys in the top 20 that are like, that have been knocked out that have lost multiple fights, but because they lost the top guys, they stay up in the rankings.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a fun fight, and I think it's a good test for you. He's been around, a lot longer than you have, but like I say, you've just been making a good headway there since the Ultimate Fighter. Again, undefeated since the Ultimate Fighter, 9-1 overall. And then I noticed, like Goes brought up, you've been on the grappling circuit, pretty successful there, and all of your opponents were bigger than you.
Yeah, my last one was the first guy that was smaller than me. I did the OSP match. OSP was big. He was like, they wanted to do it at 215, and I was like, what? This dude ain't making 215. There's no way he's gonna cut weight for a grappling match. Because, like I said, like the attitude is more relaxed. Like it's a much more, it's not like as serious as a fight. And then they called back like, they want him to do 220, and I was like, I don't care what weight it's at. Like I really don't. Like it doesn't matter to me.
How far do you think you could take grappling?
When fighting's over, I certainly want to pursue it. Like, I love grappling, and I wish I could spend more time, like in the leg lock game, so that I could really compete with these high level grapplers, because that's kind of what the grappling has turned into these days.
Right.
But grappling's always been my passion, man. I wrestled since I was 3 years old, so it's always been my passion. There's just nothing gets the blood going like an MMA fight. That's for sure.
Right. Did you watch Abu Dhabi this past year? It was in Las Vegas. Did it pique your interest to watch the top grapplers in the world?
You mean ADCCs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, okay. What'd you think?
Yeah, I was there.
Did you think you could be there one day with those top guys?
Absolutely. Well, I went to the open division, which, yeah, absolutely. For the invitational, I forget what they call that division, but yeah, I think that rule set is perfect for me. It's perfect for a wrestler.
Are you talking, you did like an absolute qualifier or something like that?
Yeah, I would do it.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't cutting weight for MMA. I could get bigger too.
I called it Abu Dhabi, but I guess it's Abu Dhabi Combat Club. But yeah, ADCC in Las Vegas, and I guess they're coming back to Las Vegas. They hit a home run. That thing was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was pretty. It's interesting you bring up leg locks, because I don't know if you remember, because this was probably 10 years ago. Husamar Palhares, similar stature, like you're really, really strong upper body, strong legs, and that guy could attack the legs for sure.
Yeah, when I was first getting into MMA, I watched a lot of Rusamir Paulhouse. What was his fight name?
Toquinho, I think. Yeah, and it meant like tree stump was the nickname.
Yeah. No, he had an incredible story. That's funny. I haven't heard that name in a long time, but he had an incredible story. He talked about like growing up on the dirt floors and no roof and this, that, and the other.
Yeah. Well, if you follow those footsteps, just make sure you let go of that leg lock. He had a little bit of a reputation.
Yeah.
But that dude was a savage, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we haven't had someone as successful at leg locks since him.
I know you got an interview coming up here in a few minutes, but I'll tell you a quick story. Goes and we had a fun night watching Paul Harris and Jake Shields grapple. Well, no, they were fighting MMA actually. And I mean, it got dirty. Like he was thumbing Jake in the eye. It wasn't down our alley. But as that's happening, the Russians and the 209 from Stockton crew are fighting in the audience, and then later on fought outside in the Planet Hollywood Hotel. It was a crazy night, man. I don't know if you've ever heard of that night.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember what the connection is with the Russians, though.
I'll tell you the connection. Habib was on our show, right? Goes and we asked him, hey, is this thing gonna spill over one day? And sure enough, it spilled over a few days later. But just for some reason, he would beef a lot with the Diaz crew.
They were fighting in there was a huge brawl in the lobby of the arena, right? I remember.
Yeah. But that was probably the last time I saw Husamar Paharis complete that I remember. But he was pretty filthy that night because we actually since we were media, they stuck us in a media row, we'll call it, but we were blocked by a crane, a panel, I forget. And they realized it, so they said, come over here. And they actually sat us right on the apron. You would have thought we were judges. We were that close.
Yeah.
And so being that close and seeing him actually go in his eye, man, that was sickening. Jake was pretty pissed off. I think that might have been one of the last times. No, that was PFL, but it was WSOF at the time.
Okay, so what happened with him in the UFC? Did he fail? He failed for drugs and then they cut him?
I can't remember what ultimately happened.
Or did they cut him because he kept ripping people's legs?
Yeah, he was he was not letting go of taps. Sometimes the ref would have to get in there. I don't remember exactly why. Maybe it took a few losses or what, or maybe there was PEDs. I can't remember. But eventually when that was over, he moved over to WSOF. And we were really pumped up for that fight because, as you know, Jake's a great grappler too. Yeah. But man, this guy took it to another level. Just like I said, seeing someone really thumb someone's eye, and that might have been the beginning of the end of Steve Mazzagatti as a referee as well. He already wasn't one of Dana White's favorites, and we don't see him much now. Now he's a timekeeper for the Nevada State Athletic Commission. But I don't know if you remember Steve Mazzagatti. He was a ref. He was the ref that night, I believe, and he just
Dana loved him.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, all right. Hey, man, great talking to you.
I'll see you guys. I appreciate it.
So much stuff, including Titanic. Never thought we'd get to that topic, but we got it all, Andre. Good luck with the rest of your camp. Thanks for doing the MMA Junkie Radio show. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.